Next is the leadership crisis rocking the University of Abuja, or Uni Abuja. The conflict took a fresh dimension during the week after a bid to appoint a substantive vice-chancellor filled with members of the External Governing Council boycotting a meeting allegedly called by the chairman of the Governing Council, Air Vice Marshal Sadiq Ismaila Keita, retired. Keita is alleged to have already anointed a candidate to fill the position before the meeting. On Tuesday, more than 43 professors and other senior lecturers from the university then stormed the Federal Ministry of Education protesting the imposition of acting Vice-Chancellor Professor Aisha Mekudi as the substantive Vice-Chancellor of Uni Abuja without due process, describing the selection process as allegedly a charade. Now, the protesting professors are now asking the Education Minister, Dr. Tunji Alausa, to urgently intervene and dissolve the council so as to begin a fresh process for the selection of a new Vice-Chancellor. They have also written to President Bola Tinubu declaring their opposition to the emergence of Professor Aisha Mekudi as the institution's Vice-Chancellor. They accuse the school's governing council of breaching the relevant university's law to foist, allegedly, Mekudi, whom they insist was unqualified to hold the position. The professors also demand an immediate dissolution of the council, nullification of the council's decision, as well as the reconstitution of a new governing council to undertake a new appointment process. Well, to help us shed light on the leadership crisis in the University of Abuja is Professor Sani Abubakar Mashi of the Department of Geography, University of Abuja. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to meet you.
Well, Professor Mashi was one of the aspirants for the Vice-Chancellorship position, and also joining us is an elected Senate representative to the Joint Council and Senate Selection Board for VC appointment of the University of Abuja, Professor Rosemary Udeozo. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, Arise News would like to say that we made efforts to invite the embattled VC, Professor Aisha Mekudi, to this interview, but she did not respond to our invitation, and we're still open to actually having her on the news channel. Thank you so much for coming. So let's start with you, Prof. Mashi, what exactly are you people looking for now in the sense that this has happened and we've seen that the retired AVM is insisting that due process was followed, and he's countering the letter that you actually wrote to President Tinubu?
Thank you very much for this important question. You see, what we are talking about Nigeria. We are talking about Nigerian educational system. There are multiple universities, and appointment of chief executive is one of the fundamental things. Once if there is a problem with the appointment of chief executive, the governance, something is wrong with it. And once if there is a problem in one university, then it can separate to another universities. So what we are now saying is this: appointment of the Vice Chancellor is one of the easiest things that could be done. Why am I saying this? Because the law is very, very clear. There are fundamentally three things that need to be done. If you do them, then things can go well. If you don't know them, then it means you are going against the law. This law was passed by the National Assembly. It's the laws of the land, which means nobody is supposed to work outside that particular law. Briefly to say, what the law is saying, if there is vacancy for the Vice Chancellor, the Governing Council is supposed to advertise. When you are placing the advert, you identify the qualities of the person that should fill the post. That is the first thing you should do. When you collect the applicants will look at their CV and see they have listed the qualities 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If they meet, you submit your curriculum vitae. If you submit the curriculum vitae, then the council is supposed to shortlist. What do you mean by shortlist? You have already advertised 1, 2, 3, 4. Out of the 100 people that applied, 17 of them did not meet this 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it means 83 have met. For instance, it's a very simple. When council does this, the law said you should collect those you have shortlisted, pass them to another body. This body is known as Council and Senate Selection Board. It is a board, not a committee of the council, an independent body. 2 members of the governing council and 2 members of the Senate. Senate is to elect their representatives, and then the council is to also elect their representatives. And then when you pass it to this body, then this body is supposed to sit down and examine, assess, interview, and interact.
So these processes were breached.
That is it. So our problem here now is these processes were breached. And once if you breach this process, it means you have breached the law. And if you have breached the law, then it means something is wrong. So what we are now saying now is, now that the law has been breached, what is supposed to be done is, Mr. President is a visitor to the university. Therefore, Mr. President, sir, you believe in law. That is one good thing that Mr. President has demonstrated. You believe in law, because if laws are not being followed, he cannot govern the country well. Mr. President, please and please follow the law and ensure that the law is done. That is simple.
All right, Professor Udeozo, I mean, you were part of the selection process.
Yes, please.
So talk to us about at what point was this process breached? And we are hearing that the newly announced Vice Chancellor does not have the 10 years qualification that's necessary for her. She's supposed to have been a professor for 10 years. What actually went on?
Okay, sir. I was elected, myself, Professor Rosemary Udeozo, and Professor Waziri were elected at the floor of Senate on the 9th of October to represent the Senate at the Council and the Senate Joint Selection Board for the appointment of substantive Vice Chancellor. This body is one of the three stipulated by the law that must be followed. One is the Governing Council. Governing Council, as my colleague here has said, has the beginning and a stopping point of its own role in this matter. They advertise. Then, from the conditions stipulated on the advert, it's supposed to be internal and external advert.
Okay.
I will get to that later. So these the candidates, the applicants, the council would check those that meet the conditions according to the advert and stop there. Then forward to the Joint Council and Senate Selection Board for further consideration, examination, interaction in the form of interviews. The examination involves mapping out certain criteria, and these criteria allotting scores to them. Then the board will do ranking, because the law says the selection board, after doing all this, will pick the top three, the best three, and recommend to council for further considerations.
Okay.
The selection board does not appoint.
Okay.
It's just recommend to council. But considering, examining, mapping out ground rules, all supposed to be joint council responsibility. Unfortunately, in the University of Abuja, after being elected on the 9th of October, we never heard again from the council.
It just went
then, just like that. On the 12th of October, we had information that the governing council chairman constituted another committee from council unknown to the law to handle the responsibilities of the selection board. Myself and Professor Waziri, we wrote a letter to him requesting, please, we want to do our job. We learned you constituted an outside committee to do our job. We are ready to do it, sir. We've been waiting. We didn't get any response until 20th of December. I had a sick relation I took home with permission. I was called to come back, that the Joint Selection Board will be meeting on the 23rd of December.
Oh, that's 2 days before
Christmas. I rushed back on Sunday so that I would attend the meeting on Monday, being 23rd. I called my colleague, Professor Waziri. Luckily, he was around. He didn't travel. Did you get their letter? I said, yes. I said, okay, we are going to start our work. I thought, to me, the excitement with which I came back from Anambra State, I thought for the first time we are going into inauguration officially, so that we'll start meeting to map out ground rules delineate responsibility
to arrive at the 3.
At the 3, how do we go about this responsibility to serve University of Abuja better? Especially where University of Abuja has peculiar case.
All right, so that didn't happen because of time, so that would shorten it.
On getting there, we discovered that, 1, the committee set by the Governing Council chairman had already done consideration of candidates. They have picked those they wanted to pick. They had delineated criteria. They had decided on scoring. They had allotted scoring. And he told us we are into inauguration. And at the same time, we are going to decide on how to carry out interviews.
So it was predetermined, that's what you're saying?
Yes, he brought well-packaged process documents. Right. We know nothing about where they came from.
All right.
Then we reacted.
All right. I mean, this went on way up until I think December 31 when the new VC was appointed. And you've gone on to actually protest with the Minister of Education and then, of course, with the President. Now, talk to us. I think there was a similar issue that happened at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University.
Exactly.
In Awka. So, do you believe in the capacity of the President to take the right decision to actually reverse this appointment?
Exactly. We have every confidence and trust that the President, the Minister of Education, that they will do the needful, that they will put a fresh governing council in place. Because on the 24th of December, when the chairman of governing council directed the acting VC to go back to Senate to remove us, who refused to abide by their tenets, to remove us and bring 2 other people, the Senate refused.
All right.
The Senate said the President, they are hoping, should dissolve the council, call for a fresh procedure for free and fair process that will be
acceptable
to everybody.
All right, Professor Mashi, let's talk about that age issue. I mean, the 10 years that's required for professorship and that can qualify you. I mean, that's one of the things that was being used against Professor Mekudi. Talk to us about that. I mean, you were a contestant yourself.
Thank you very much. This is not the first time I'm contesting. I became professor 2008, which is 16 years. Now it's 17 years. In 2014, there was a transition advert. I applied. I met all the criteria, but by then I was only 6 years. I was disqualified at the level of the shortlisting, and the council was right.
So
the reason was that, yes, I was not up to 10 years, I was disqualified. 2019, transition, I was already serving somewhere as Director General of a federal government agency, so I didn't apply. So this year, we were expecting similar thing. When the first advert came, the first advert was released in March, and they put 5 years. And the union saw foul play, and they said, no, it's wrong. Number one, it was not even produced, but then there was no council. They say it should be withdrawn. Part of our complaint was that the benchmark is 10 years because National Universities Commission, Federal Ministry of Education, as we all know by law, they have the power to set standards. That is why Minister of Education, for instance, said 5 O-level credits, including Maths and English. If you go there, no any law book you will open in Nigeria where you will see 5 credits. But now, it has become a law. So really, because it's a policy produced by government, by Minister of Education. The same ministry produced guidelines and say for you to be BC a minimum of 10 years. So which means it's invariably a law that must be followed.
So all those things were breached by Professor
They were breached. So what happened, in short, what was happened in the first advert, they put 5 years. We complained against. We said it should be cancelled. What the council did, they produced second advert in August. In fact, to our own shock, in the second advert, they even removed the years. 0, they say a professor. That was the beginning of the problem. In the case of Aisha Mekudi, she became professor 2002.
22.
Which means
2022.
Which means she's only 2 years now. So if you go by the standard of the Ministry of Education, she shouldn't have even been qualified. So because selection board did not handle this, that was why it was feasible for them to do what they did. That is why we are saying, please put another governing council on the ground, because this governing council is already polarized. some of the external members, there are 6 external members, 3 of them boycotted. So it's already problematic.
So you've already passed a vote of no confidence on them.
It's a clear side.
So now let's talk about this protest to the Minister of Education. What kind of audience did you receive, when you protested to the Education Minister?
Actually, when we got there, we had that this Tuesday, the last Tuesday, we went there to drop a letter through the Ministry of Education to the visitor of the university.
That's President Tinubu.
President Tinubu. But before that, we had dropped a letter for the minister addressed to him. We were told he traveled. So the last visit to his place, we were many. Before we wrote the first letter, the substantive VC was not appointed. We went to him to please, beg him, stop this process. It's flawed, full of irregularities. Please. Unfortunately, after that, the fake result was announced.
All right.
So we went to plead with the minister that we are still waiting. Many professors were there. Only 47 of us went inside. Others were waiting outside. According to the security men by the gate, they say we were so many.
Yeah, we saw the visual. So, well, as we try to wrap up this conversation, what is the implication of the VC-ship of Professor Mekudi continuing if nothing is done based on what you have said?
Then it means we are saying that the law is not needed. Once you have governing council, let them go and do whatever they like, because this is what happened. They carried the law and kept it aside and appointed Aisha Mekudi. So the other governing council, it means they don't need to sweat. In fact, they don't need to even advertise.
And
so they don't need to advertise, they don't need to
You're also
screen.
focusing on the chairman of the governing council, AVM Keita. I mean, is he the one that is overwhelmingly having an undue influence, or it's the entire board?
The thing is, what I am telling you, council is made of 6 members internal, 6 members external. External by the federal government, internal elected by us. Those from the federal government, out of the 6, 3 boycotted the process. So which means you can say half of the appointees of Mr. President boycotted it because they don't believe in the law. They boycotted it. So which means there was no governing council.
How about that of the internal?
Those of the internal, because they are very solid, they are part of the plan. Because Aisha is part of the 6.
Okay,
so therefore,
she's an acting vice chancellor.
As the acting vice chancellor. So the internal ones, they fully cooperated. So
all right. When we saw a similar scenario in the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Oka, I mean, we could see how the whole team played that, and eventually the visitor actually had to sanction the chairman of the governing council. Do you foresee that happening, and the chairman of the governing council maybe being given punitive measures for refusing to actually follow the law?
Exactly, sir. That is the expectation.
All right.
Yes, because the entire University of Abuja Senate members passed vote of no confidence on him, because they don't believe somebody that has done this, if you retain him there, probably remove the vice chancellor, there is no guarantee that he will not do it again.
All right. And Professor Mashi, before I let you go, I mean, there's always this complaint by the young people that the new VCs, she's young, and some of you, the elderly ones, don't want to accommodate younger people in leadership position in the university.
It's very simple. University is about excellence. When we are admitting students, we admit the best. Right. Therefore, it will amount to contradiction for us when we are elected now. We say we are not after excellence. We are after the most beautiful or the youngest. I think it's wrong.
All right, Professor Sani Mashi is professor at the Department of Geography, University of Abuja, and of course, you also contested the VC-ship. We just hope all these issues are resolved. I also have Professor Rosemary Udeozo, who's a Abuja Senate rep for VC appointment. We want to thank you so much for the time you took to explain the process. I mean, because people can be confused easily because of how chaotic issues have been. But we must thank you. And
thank you very much.
And just like we said earlier, well, the show is still open to Professor Aisha Mekudi to actually send in her representation to, or be right here to talk about the issues. Well, that's the much we can take on this edition of This Week. Thanks to our production team here in Abuja, Lagos, and London. Do join us same time next week for another exciting edition. I'm Somna Sami.